In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the autopilot feature of the universal grid to step through videos and effects. First, I want to point out that I'm running an instance of Tractor in the background just to get some audio into the system, and I have Ableton Link set up to send to VidJam down here. I'm going to go ahead and turn up the volume and expand VidJam. Alright, so already you can see Ableton Link is detected, and you can use any software. It can be DJ software, DAW, external equipment, anything that can send the more modern Ableton Link signal so that it can send the tempo of your music, or you can use the old school MIDI clock as well. So I'm going to expand the stack, and I have a very simple effects grid set up, and it's just 4 copies of the kaleidoscope effect. And each copy, if you see these parameters here, as I click and select them, has a little bit different parameters. And what's going to happen is that when I enable the layer, you're going to see the kaleidoscope effect pumping to the beat. I have autopilot turned on here, and it's set up to go to quarter notes. So when I enable the layer, you're going to see the impact it has on the bass layer. Alright, so the next example is going to be the same, but this time I'm going to load in this whole playlist right here, which is the VectorTech collection included in X8, and we're going to load it into the grid. And it's already set, the autopilot is already turned on, and it's set to mix every measure. So it's going to play one measure and then go to the next in the grid. So that's how that one's set up. And on top here, I have another instance of the pixelate effect, and this one also has a little bit different parameters for each step, and this one is actually going to 1/8 notes. So when I link that, it was only going to apply the effect to the layer below it, and when I enable both, we're going to see the result. So again, this time we have the bass layer with a video that is already going to a beat. We've applied a kaleidoscope on top of that, which is switching 4 instances of itself. That's also going to the beat. Then we have a video grid, which is mixing to the beat every measure, and the visuals inside of that grid are also locked to the tempo automatically. And then we have an effect that's linked to that video grid on top that's applying pixelate effect just on that layer, and that's going to 1/8 notes. So you can see how easy it is to set up very complex layering structures that always line up with your music. So the last example, expand, I have the same, except this time I have another video grid, and I've loaded in a vibe collection which has some high contrast green cubes. And this time I have applied a little bit more complex structure in the effects grid. So this time I'm using 4 different effects and 2 instances, and each instance has different parameters like I set up in the others. And this is going to give just a more rhythmic feel. And you can open the effects manager and add any kind of sequence of effects and change their parameters and set up the autopilot to step through at whatever rate you like. I'm going to link it to this cube layer below, and we're going to turn those on. And so now we have even more complex, but it's really to illustrate a point that it is very easy to layer and sequence effects and instances of effects with different parameters using the universal grid and the autopilot. Remember that once you're happy with the settings that you have in your stack, including the video grids, effects, autopilot settings, step sequences, all these things, save it as a scene using the buttons at the top of the screen for instant recall later in your performances.